alone. Welcome to the very first live reading of our book of the week. This live is only supposed to last for 30 minutes, and we'll pick up the reading of another chapter for 30 minutes tomorrow. The book for this week is A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck. It is under the category of short story, and for this book we're actually going to start by reading the prologue because I think it's like part of the book to an extent. If you do enjoy the reading, please subscribe, let me know in the comments, and maybe share. And let me know maybe what book you would like me to read next and what genre it is, because I'm exploring genres right now. So I would pick the book most likely based on the genre that is being suggested. So A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck. Prologue. Although I have loved many, there has only been one genuine love in my near eternally stretched life. Rachel, who fell to the bottom of the library without me. Did I know her only for so short a time? Strange how a moment in existence can cut so deeply into our being that while ages pass unnoticed, a brief love can structure and define the very topology of our consciousness ever after. I'm getting ahead of myself. I suppose I must start at the beginning. A beginning so long ago that its horizon is a vanishing point at the convergence of two Euclidean lines that would be parallel by any human measure. The first years are the easiest to describe. They were years of adventure, companionship, and love. I have not seen anyone for uncountable years. Yet, even after so long, I still listened for the sound of another's voice, the ring of footsteps on the stairs, or a figure moving silhouetted in the distance. Once, I spent a year just listening. Another should build a telescope made from clarified sheep's intestines from the kiosks so that I might look deep into the library. Despite my substantial efforts, I have failed to find another soul. We have all scattered far and wide into the vastness of this space and cannot find one another. I suspect by now we are all alone. Yet, I labor on. By my count, which I know is accurate, for my memory in this place, it seems, is incapable of forgetting even the smallest detail, I have climbed innumerable light years from the lowest level to this one, where I sit, with this book in my hands, reading of my stay here. This is not the story of my life, so it serves little purpose. But as I read, I marvel that I found such a book. It is close to the one I seek. Sometimes I fantasize that I will discover the book that describes the location of the volume I have been searching for. But alas, how would I know it was the right one? There are countless books in the library that claim a particular floor contains the one I need, and then, of course, no single book could contain a number so large that the height and depth of this library could be expressed as in numerical digits. Silly thoughts in this monotonous place are inevitable, I suppose. I have found many treasures. A couple of years ago, I found a book that looked like it described my earthly digestive history, from beginning to end. Every meal, how the food was broken into its chemical composition and then sent on to the intestine. I have also grown fond of what I'm sure are very close to Mikey Splain novels. So too, I remember that for about 700 billion years, I carried a book of short stories. Some were fantasies, some romances, and one was a farce. It was a marvelous book. The last story was my favorite. It told of a monkey, once the powerful owner of a lawnmower repair business, who falls into obscurity and despair. It told of his sorrows at having lost his greatness and reputation in the field as technological changes outstripped his ability to keep up. He spoke movingly of his search for religion. I still get teary-eyed when I think of the ending of that story, which I will not spoil by telling you. One book I found not long ago was full of random characters except for page 111 to 222, wherein I found an exposition that speculated that God had created the universe as a way of sorting through the great library, finding those books that were most beautiful and meaningful. I argued that in the mere 16 billion years of my old universe existence, a vast store of great thoughts and literature had been produced during the short creative life of human existence on the planet. The work entertained the notion that evolution was the most effective sorting algorithm for finding the subsets of coherent and readable books that are scattered thinly throughout the randomness of the library. The argument took on special meaning to me because it had been almost 160 billion years since I had found such a string of coherent text. I'm sorry. Okay. To find such a delightful work of treasure was a treasure. To find such a delightful work was a treasure indeed, especially such a germane treatise nestled between such auspicious page numbers. Forgive me, I am getting ahead of myself. I must start at the beginning if there's to be any hope that you might understand my life in hell and the fateful day the great demon sent me here. I must start with the interview, or none of this will make sense. So I begin here. The proficient demon leaned back comfortably. The proficient demon leaned back comfortably in his large, high-backed red leather chair, then swung away from the 5 terrified guests seated before him and turned to the window behind him. The room was well lit, with high incandescent tubes arranged in several functional pairs that spanned the length of the ceiling, giving the room a soft, business-like feel. Potted plants, placed tastefully here and there, lent the room a sense of proportion and order. The demon was the only thing that did not seem to belong. The master's yellow gaze was directed thoughtfully out of the large framed window that dominated the wall behind his desk. Behind the glass was a large caravan lit with a dancing red glow. He sighed and scratched his leg with one of his black-tipped hooves as he surveyed the seething, molten bed of lava. bubbly thickly, bubbling thickly like slowly boiling sweet candy syrup in the scene below him. Occasionally, from the lake of fire, a blazing fountain would erupt violently, sparkling the ceiling of the great caravan with hot lava, which would then drip in large globs slowly back to the enormous magma lake, creating high, thick splashes of bright orange liquid rock. Inside the lake, scores of wailing people would be seen wading through the pool, screaming in agony, and even though their cries would not pierce the thickness of the glass window, the muted agony and terror visible on their faces transferred the terror of the situation to the 5 seated guests. All 5 were trembling and breathless. On the lake's edge, small shadowy demons wielded jagged leather whips and long rusted pitchforks to drive those souls desperately trying to scramble out of the pool back to its bubbling center. The yellow-eyed demon swiveled back toward the 3 men and 2 women, staring back at him wide-eyed with horror. They were dressed simply in thick white robes of raw cotton. Their feet were bare, and they were seated on unstable grey metal folding chairs that squeaked loudly when they moved. The imposing demon was tall, about 8 feet. His large gauntlets spotted coarse, thick hair, giving him a satyr-like aspect without the charm of a classical Pan. His torso was exceptionally well muscled, fire engine red like his face, but covered with a thin layer of moisture from which seemed to emanate a nauseous, sulphurous stench. His well-shaped arms were disproportionately long, and his hands sported dangerous silhouette-like claws. His head was massive, split with wide flaring nostrils and large yellow cat slate eyes that seemed to shine with their own light. On his head, 2 grey horns like those of an Ellard spiraled slowly to a height of about a meter above his skull. His shaggy mane seemed a striking contrast to his clean-shaven jaw and cheeks, while bright red pointed bat ears jutted from the sides of his head, standing erect and attentive, like a Doberman's pinscher. His teeth were pointed, and 2 oversized vicious canines added to the overall ghastliness of his countenance. He smiled. Not a fierce, diabolical smile, but a genuinely pleased and happy grin. Well, what can I say but welcome? Welcome to hell. He spread his arms out graciously. Satan? One of the women whispered hoarsely. Harriman? No. Nothing as notable as that. I am Zanden, one of the Yazatas, a minor functionary. I hope you are not too disappointed. He seemed genuinely concerned. One of the women shook her head and turned away sobbing. Well, let's see. What have we here today? He picked up a red triangle from his desk and began tapping on the device with the long, sharp claw of his indexed finger. He repeated to himself as he gazed at the screen of his device, looking slightly puzzled. Lester Green, he said, suddenly looking up to one of the men sitting in the uncomfortable metal chairs. Rather than fear, this man seemed to radiate a quiet, bold confidence, like someone used to sending back food at a restaurant after establishing some flaw in the meal that did not meet his exacting standards. "There's been a mistake," he said softly, but with firm resolve. "I am not supposed to be here." "A mistake?" the demon said with a baffled look on his face. Quite possibly, quite possibly. Things in hell don't always run as smoothly as one would like, do they? He picked up the rectangle and after a few taps read aloud, "Let's see. Lester Green, 1294 Battle Lane, Forest City, Arkansas. Wife, Sarah Green. 4 children, Matthew, Mark, Jesse, and Caleb. Died while playing golf during a thunderstorm struck by lightning." He mentioned as an aside to the guest. "Everything looks in order," the great demon said, with a little impatience in his voice. "No, you see, I was saved, forever and for all time. I came forth at a preacher's call. I was washed in the blood of the Lamb. I am saved by Christ. Who can snatch me from God's hand?" As the man he rose to his feet, his face upward, and threw his hands in the air, crying, "Help me, Jesus." The demon looked on quizzically. "You were a Christian then?" "Yes, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I shouldn't be here. I've been saved," the man shouted, though with waning bravado. "Well, there's your problem. You didn't join the one true religion." "What?" "I'm telling you, I was a Christian. I read the Bible every day. I donated money to the TV evangelists every Sunday, and I was saved." "No, sorry. The true religion is Zoroastrianism." I'm afraid. Bit of bad luck there. Christianity certainly borrowed you from the one true religion, but not enough, unfortunately. Not nearly enough. Zoroastrianism? Never heard of it. How can that be the true religion? The man looked confused. Zoroastrianism. Oh, there's never been but a few 100,000 of them at one time. Mostly located in Iran and India, but that's it. The one true faith. If you are not Zoroastrian, I'm afraid you are bound for hell. The man looked shocked and stunned. "It's not fair." The demon gave a mirthful laugh. "Well, it was fair when you were sending all the Chinese to hell who had never heard of Jesus, wasn't it? And what a cruel and vicious hell it was. And your hell was not our short little corrects you a little hell. It was eternal damnation. At least in true Zoroastrianism, Zoroastrianism system, you eventually of hell. Do you have any idea how long eternity is? My heavens, what an imagination you humans have. What kind of God will leave you burning forever? Most of you wouldn't do that to a neighbor's dog, even if it barked incessantly. It has to do with season, incessantly. I will check. Incessantly at 2 a.m. every morning. After about 10 minutes watching a dog suffer in the kind of hell you imagined God was going to send his wicked children to, you would be pleading for the damned beast's mercy. It's crazy. Create a few beings. Those that don't obey you roast forever. Give me a break. The demon shook his great head in wonder. One of the women, a pretty girl with short red hair, raised her hand. "You mean we won't be in hell forever?" The demon laughed. Of course not. Hell is not for your edification. Hell is for your edification and wisdom. Punishment, yes, but not forever. "So those people will get out?" the woman continued, pointing shakily to those in agony outside the window. The demon considered for a moment. I probably shouldn't tell you this. Well, no harm's done. I've never really agreed with the policy anyway. But that's all just make-believe. We keep the office windows showing that scene just to get the new arrivals to take things seriously. Those are all actors. They get off in about a half hour. So anyway, we better push on. The humans seemed confused. The demon rose to his feet. Well, Lester the Christian, where are you? This isn't right, he screamed. The demon was ignoring the tantrum. He began tapping his handheld device. No, that's not it. No, maybe. No, no, I shouldn't. But no, that's too cruel. I really shouldn't. Suddenly, he gave a chuckle and sighed. Oh, why not? The great God created irony too. Lester, at this, was screaming at the top of his lungs about the injustice of it all. Injustice? Queried the demon sarcastically. You were never concerned with justice a day in your life except when it was evil. Bye. With a tap of his claw to the rectangle, the man disappeared briskly in mid-outrage, leaving the room in cold silence. The demon was back on his device, humming a beat to himself. That felt good. I hate those unthinking, unflexible, unreflexive types. That hell ought to humble him a bit. Eternal hell. What an imagination. Everyone just stared at him as he busily tapped away. Julia Hansen, he said, looking at the same woman who had asked about the lake of fire outside the window. Single professor of biology at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, confirmed atheist, wrote a number of papers on the evolution of bumblebee society. Very interesting ones too, I must say. Well, you must really be surprised, eh? I read that wrong. Well, you must really be surprised to be here, eh? Turns out, there's a God after all. Now, do you believe? The frightened woman could only shake her head and mutter, I'm sure I've gone mad. But she did not seem convinced by her own words. After a moment, she asked, So, there is a God? The demon nodded his head. Yes, of course. The wise Lord Ahura Mazda. I'm his humble servant. I thought demons were under the control of Satan, so of the dark side of the force. Why don't I ever get the people who have studied a little Zoroastrianism? Here, he said, shaking his head sadly. No, that's Christian. Ahriman has rebelled against God, but in charge of hell? Heavens no. How can you think God will let someone like hell? How can you think God will let something like hell exist if he's really in charge of the universe? Sheesh. Running a hell is an art of such imagination and brilliance. How could anyone but the wise God of judgment be in charge? The woman looked down at her schmuck and mumbled, I know more about bumblebees. Yes, you do, the demon said excitedly, tapping frantically as if he had just had a stroke of brilliance. There, he said, smiling. Bye. She was gone. A few more minutes, a few more questions, a few more taps. Some of the others begging, some silent, but one by one the people disappeared until one man remained sitting on his chair. Well, last, the best of all the game, hey? Soren Johansson died of brain cancer. Died young, only 45, 4 children. Well, I'm sure they'll miss you. Looks like you were a good husband, good father, not a bad Mormon. He smiled. You would have made a good Zoroastrian. Now, what hell for you? Let's see. You like to read. In fact, it seems you loved books. Interesting. Suddenly, the demon looked up. Bye. And so it began. I mean, this live is supposed to last for 30 minutes. I've got 4 minutes left. I guess I could just finish the prologue. I found this book around the 23rd raised to 439th day of my stay in hell. Mathematically, what would that be? How odd to find a book that looks as if I wrote it, when it's really just one of the random possibilities that exist here. It was close enough to the actual events that I will place it in the slot to see if it changes my fate. The slight variations are trivial and of no consequence. How does one begin to describe infinities of eons? How can such a small word as eon describe a length of time that is more akin to eternity than any measurable time span? There is no metaphor I can use to give you a sense of the time that's passed here. My earth life was so long ago that by now trillions of universes like the one in which I lived on earth have come and gone. Countless such must have blown into existence in innumerable big bangs, each with a billion generations of suns flaring into existence, then burning out into a fine, dull brown dust. After this long, I am not bitter. I barely feel at all. Now I only search. That is the prologue. Oh, this book was definitely something. So in the next live, we are going to be reading chapter 1. We are going to be reading chapter 1. 30 minutes of chapter 1, and then in the next live, 30 minutes of chapter 2, and so on. I am no voiceover like audio book reader and stuff. I'm still going to need to figure out if I want to do like straight up reading or if I will do commentary in between. And I also know my reading is like not smooth. I will make an effort to be sure of some of the pronunciations of these words so I don't come and bite my tongue here. But yeah, let me know what you think of this video. Thank you so much for staying. I will really also need to find out what I can do to keep my voice steady throughout the reading because I was struggling. Like, even now I was struggling. My voice was doing things that but anyways, thank you. I do not expect that anyone stayed this long. I doubt it, but